Miko Jensen wasn't supposed to be the face of humanity. That was never the plan. But plans have a funny way of going sideways when you're the only human in a room full of aliens who evolved from everything from hyper-intelligent coral to sentient gas clouds. When Earth joined the Galactic Confederation, the selection committee chose Miko because she was, in their words, pleasantly average. Average height, average build, average academic record from an average university. The committee figured she'd be non-threatening to the 247 other species in the Confederation. Boy, did they screw that up. Ambassador Jensen, please refrain from making direct eye contact with the Vexthahar delegation, whispered Glix, her Molluscan protocol officer. His eye stalks twitched nervously as they approached the meeting chamber. Their species considers it a challenge to authority. Miko nodded, adjusting her standard-issue diplomatic uniform, a glorified jumpsuit that made her look like a rejected extra from a 1970s sci-fi show. Got it. No eye contact. Anything else I should know before we enter? Glix's translucent body rippled in what Miko had learned was the Molluscan equivalent of a sigh. Just, try not to show your teeth, or stand too straight, or move too quickly, or breathe too loudly. So basically, don't be human. Precisely. Glix replied, missing the sarcasm entirely. The doors to the chamber hissed open, revealing a cavernous room designed to accommodate species of all shapes and sizes. At the center stood, or rather loomed, the Vexthahar delegation. Even by the standards of apex predators, the Vexthahar were intimidating. 8 feet tall, covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors like oil on water, with retractable claws that could slice through starship hull plating. Miko had read the briefing. The Vexthahar had evolved as ambush predators on a world with 3 suns, developing unparalleled stealth capabilities and a social structure based entirely on hunting prowess. They'd skipped the agricultural revolution entirely, going straight from hunter-gatherers to spacefaring hunters who considered most technology beneath them, except for the tech that made them better hunters. Ambassador Jensen of Earth announced the chamber's AI translator. Miko kept her eyes downcast as she approached the delegation. The lead Vexthahar, who'd been introduced as Huntmaster Kraz, let out a low rumbling sound that the translator didn't even attempt to interpret. The small soft one approaches with appropriate deference. Kraz finally said, his voice like gravel in a blender. Perhaps humans understand their place in the natural order after all. And that's when Miko made her first mistake. She looked up. Their eyes met, her ordinary brown human eyes locking with Kraz's vertical pupilled yellow ones. Protocol dictated she should immediately look away. Instead, something primordial in the back of her brain kicked in, and she held the gaze. A hush fell over the chamber. Glix's tentacles went rigid with horror. The other Vexthahar warriors shifted uncomfortably. Then, to everyone's shock, Huntmaster Kraz did something no Vexthahar had ever done in the presence of a non-Vexthahar. He blinked first. Interesting, he said, his head tilting slightly. Very interesting. The diplomatic handbook had precisely 0 chapters on what to do when an apex predator from another world acknowledges you as an equal. Miko had checked. Twice. Ambassador Jensen, Glix whispered urgently, his voice barely audible. Please look away now. This is highly irregular. But Miko couldn't look away. Something was happening here, something the briefing hadn't prepared her for. Huntmaster Kraz took a step forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over her. The other Vexthahar warriors backed away slightly, their scales shifting to a deep purple, a color Miko later learned indicated confusion. You have the eyes of a hunter, Kraz said, his translator struggling to convey the complex tones. Yet your species has no natural weapons, no claws, no venom, no significant strength. Miko found herself speaking before the rational part of her brain could intervene. We didn't need them. The Huntmaster's mouth opened, revealing rows of serrated teeth and what might have been a smile or a threat display. Explain. On Earth, we weren't the strongest or the fastest, so we became the most persistent. Kraz leaned in closer, his breath hot on Miko's face. The scent reminded her oddly of cinnamon and ozone. Persistence is not enough to make you apex. We hunted prey that could outrun us by following them until they collapsed from exhaustion. We called it persistence hunting. We didn't need to be faster, just more stubborn. The Huntmaster made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. A prey species that became predator through sheer obstinance. Fascinating. The diplomatic meeting was rapidly veering off script. Technically, they were supposed to be discussing trade routes through Vexthahar territory. Instead, Miko found herself in an impromptu anthropology lecture. We developed tools, she continued. Turned our environment into weapons. Learned to cooperate in ways most predators never needed to. Kraz circled her slowly, examining her from all angles. Your species is soft, weak, yet you speak with the voice of one who has known the hunt. Every human has a predator inside them, Miko said. We just buried it under layers of civilization and microwavable burritos. That's when the emergency klaxons began blaring. Red lights pulsed throughout the chamber, and the station's AI announced, "Security breach detected. Unknown entities detected in Habitat Ring 3. All personnel initiate lockdown procedures." Kraz's head snapped toward the sound, his scales shifting to a vibrant red. "Nest raiders," he growled. Miko turned to Glix for explanation, but the Maluescan had already collapsed into a protective ball, his survival instinct overriding diplomatic protocol. "What's happening?" she demanded. "The Vrang," Kraz replied, already moving toward the exit with his warriors. "Parasitic raiders. They seek our young." The Huntmaster paused at the doorway, turning to fix Miko with those unnerving yellow eyes. "Your diplomatic meeting is over, human. But perhaps you would care to join us for a hunt instead." Every rational neuron in Miko's brain screamed that this was a terrible idea. The diplomatic handbook specifically prohibited engaging in potentially lethal activities with alien species. Protocol dictated she should head to the nearest secure location and wait for Confederation security forces. Instead, she found herself following Kraz, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and something else, something older and more primal. "I thought humans were supposed to be risk-averse," commented one of the Vexthahar warriors as they moved through the corridors. "You've clearly never seen our extreme sports channels," Miko replied, trying to match their pace. "Or our dating shows." The Huntmaster handed her a weapon, a curved blade that hummed with energy. "Can you use this?" Miko stared at it. The last weapon she'd handled was a stapler, which she'd brandished threateningly at the office printer. "Point the sharp end at the bad guys." Kraz made that strange laughing sound again. "Perhaps there is hope for your species after all." As they reached Habitat Ring 3, Miko caught her first glimpse of the Vrang. They moved like shadows, their bodies seemingly made of living darkness, with only glowing red sensory organs revealing their positions. They were heading toward the nursery chambers where the Vexthahar young were kept. "They consume the young of other species," Kraz explained grimly. "Not for sustenance, but to absorb genetic material. They steal evolutionary advantages." Miko gripped her weapon tighter. "So basically they're the worst kind of plagiarists." "Indeed." The Huntmaster's scales shifted to a deep blue. "And now, human, we hunt." What followed was either the most terrifying or exhilarating 30 minutes of Miko's life. She still couldn't decide which. The Vexthahar moved with lethal grace, striking at the Vrang with precision that would make Earth's top predators look like clumsy puppies. And somehow, Miko kept up. When it was over, when the last Vrang had been dispatched and the nursery secured, Huntmaster Kraz turned to her with newfound respect. "You fight like you have hunted all your life," he said, his scales now a calm green. Miko looked down at her hands, surprised to find them steady despite everything. "I think, maybe we've just been hunting different things." The Huntmaster nodded slowly. "The Confederation does not understand your kind, human. They see your lack of natural weapons and assume you are prey. They are wrong." "Is that a compliment?" Miko asked, raising an eyebrow. "It is a fact." Kraz placed a clawed hand on her shoulder, and one the Vexthahar will not forget. As they walked back to the diplomatic chambers, Miko realized something had fundamentally changed. What had begun as a standard first contact meeting had evolved into something unprecedented. An alliance based not on political convenience, but on mutual recognition between predators. Glix was waiting for them, his eye stalks drooping with relief. "Ambassador Jensen, you're alive. I've already drafted your formal apology to the Confederation for violating 16 separate protocols." Miko exchanged a look with Kraz. "I think we're going to need a different kind of statement." "This is unprecedented," declared Councillor Vemplex, his crystalline body refracting light across the chamber. "A human and a Vexthahar, cooperating during a Vrang incursion." The Galactic Confederation Council had convened an emergency session to discuss the events aboard the diplomatic station. Miko stood at the center of the chamber, trying not to fidget under the scrutiny of 24 alien species. Huntmaster Kraz stood beside her, his posture relaxed but alert, a predator at rest, but ready to strike if necessary. "Ambassador Jensen," continued Vemplex, "you violated 17 diplomatic protocols." 16, corrected Glix from the sidelines. 16 diplomatic protocols, endangered yourself and potentially Earth's standing in the Confederation, and participated in combat operations without authorization. The councillor's voice echoed through the chamber. "And yet the Vexthahar have formally requested your appointment as Earth's permanent ambassador to their homeworld." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Vexthahar had never requested specific diplomats before. They typically tolerated Confederation representatives as a necessary inconvenience. I believe, Kraz interjected, his voice causing immediate silence, that the Council has misunderstood humans from the beginning. You classified them as non-predators, as social gatherers. You were wrong, Dr. Pelzix, the Confederation's lead xenobiologist, approached the center of the chamber. The arthropoid scientist's multiple limbs twitched with excitement. Council, I believe we're witnessing a fascinating evolutionary recognition pattern. With your permission, I'd like to conduct some tests. Tests, it turned out, meant 3 days of Miko staring into the eyes of every predatory species in the Confederation database, while sensors monitored physiological responses. By the end of it, she was exhausted, her eyes were bloodshot, and she'd developed a twitch in her left eyelid. Remarkable, Dr. Pelzix muttered, reviewing the data. Every apex predator species shows the same reaction, initial challenge response followed by recognition and acceptance. It's as if they see you as one of their own. But humans aren't apex predators, argued Counselor Nixtrel, a member of a species that had evolved from herd animals. They have no natural weapons, no significant physical advantages. If I may, Miko interrupted, I think you're applying the wrong definition of apex predator here. Dr. Pelzix, some mandibles clicked with interest. Please elaborate, Ambassador. On Earth, most apex predators are specialized, lions for the savanna, sharks for the ocean, that sort of thing. Humans became apex predators not through specialization, but through adaptability. Miko paced as she spoke, warming to her subject. We can hunt in any environment, using any strategy. We don't just adapt to our environment, we adapt our environment to us. Fascinating, Dr. Pelzix said, but that doesn't explain the eye contact phenomenon. I have a theory about that, Miko said. For millions of years, our ancestors weren't apex predators, we were prey. We had to learn to recognize predator eyes to survive. That recognition is hardwired into us. Kraz nodded slowly. And when a prey species becomes predator, they carry that knowledge with them. You know us because you once feared us. Exactly, Miko said. We spent so long staring into the eyes of predators, that when we became predators ourselves, we kept that connection. The research team expanded, bringing in specialists from a dozen fields. They studied human history, psychology, and physiology. They analyzed the subtle micro-expressions that humans and predatory species share. They even examined the human retina, discovering unique structures that mirrored those found in apex predators across the galaxy. It's more than just recognizing a fellow predator, Dr. Pelzix explained during the final briefing. It's recognizing a specific type of predator, one that hunts not just for food, but for dominance, for territory, for the future. In other words, Miko said, we hunt for abstract concepts. Precisely, the scientist's limbs waved with excitement. Most predatory species hunt for immediate needs. Humans hunt for possibilities. You hunted your way to the stars, not because you were hungry, but because you were curious. Counselor Vemplex seemed less impressed. This is all very fascinating from a xenobiological perspective, but it doesn't address the diplomatic implications. I believe it does, Kraz countered. The Confederation has been approaching humans as if they were like the Florian Collective, or the Drelb Communion, social species that prioritize harmony over advancement. But humans are hunters. They respond to challenges, not to coddling. Miko couldn't help but smile. He's right, we're at our best when we're solving problems, overcoming obstacles. That's our hunt now. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Counselor Vemplex spoke. So you're suggesting we need to re-evaluate our entire diplomatic approach to Earth? I'm suggesting, Miko replied, that if you want to see what humans are truly capable of, you should stop treating us like we're fragile. As if on cue, the chamber's emergency systems activated. A holographic display appeared at the center, showing a massive spatial anomaly forming near the Confederation's outer territories. Counselors, announced the station's AI, we have detected multiple Varing hive ships emerging from the anomaly. They are not responding to hails. The council erupted into chaos. The Vrong had never attacked in such numbers before. Evacuation orders were issued. Defense systems activated. In the midst of the commotion, Huntmaster Kraz turned to Miko, his scales shifting to a deep, intense blue. It seems, Ambassador Jensen, that the hunt is not over. Miko met his gaze, that primordial recognition passing between them once more. It never really is it? The Confederation war room resembled nothing so much as a zoo having a collective nervous breakdown. Representatives from 24 species argued in a cacophony of translated voices, while tactical displays showed the advancing Vrong fleet. "They've never attacked in these numbers," said Admiral Zorel of the Confederation Defense Force, his bioluminescent appendages flashing with stress patterns. "Our standard containment protocols are insufficient." Huntmaster Kraz studied the tactical display with predatory focus. "They're adapting their strategy based on previous encounters, learning." "That's not supposed to be possible," Dr. Pelzik said, mandibles clicking nervously. "Vrong hive minds don't evolve that quickly. Unless they've consumed something that gave them that ability," Miko suggested, thinking about what Kraz had told her about the Vrong's genetic theft. "Or someone." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 7 research outposts have gone dark in the past month, Admiral Zorel confirmed reluctantly, including one studying cognitive enhancement technologies. Counselor Venplex's crystalline form dimmed with concern. "The defense fleet is mobilizing, but they won't reach the outer territories for 3 days. By then the Vrang will have consumed every colony in their path," Kraz finished. "The Vexatar will fight, but we cannot defend all territories simultaneously." Miko had been quiet, studying the star charts and fleet movements. Something about the pattern nagged at her, a familiarity she couldn't quite place. Then it clicked. "They're not just attacking randomly," she said, stepping forward to manipulate the holographic display. "Look at their formation, how they're moving between star systems." Kraz moved beside her, his predator's eyes narrowing. "I see it now. They're hunting." "Yes," Miko nodded, "but not how predators hunt. This is how humans used to hunt, herding behavior. They're deliberately leaving escape routes, funnel patterns." She traced the paths on the display. "They're herding colonists toward this system here." "The Nexus cluster," Admiral Zorel confirmed. "But why? It has minimal strategic value." "The Nexus cluster," Dr. Pelzik interjected, "contains the Confederation's primary xenogenetic repository. Samples from every known sentient species." The room went deathly quiet as understanding spread. "If they consume those samples," Counselor Venplex didn't need to finish the thought. "Then we face an enemy with the combined evolutionary advantages of every species in the Confederation," Kraz growled. "An adaptive hive mind with our collective strengths and none of our weaknesses. We need to stop them before they reach the Nexus," Admiral Zorel stated the obvious. "But our main fleet won't arrive in time." Miko looked at Kraz, an idea forming. "What if we don't try to stop their entire fleet? What if we hunt the hunters?" Kraz's scales shifted to a deep purple, the color of interested contemplation. "You propose targeting their command structure?" "Exactly. The Vrang operate as a hive mind, right? So there must be a central consciousness coordinating this attack." Miko expanded the tactical display. "We don't need to defeat their entire force, just remove the head." "A surgical strike." Kraz nodded approvingly. "But we would need to get close enough to identify the command vessel, which means going behind their lines." Admiral Zorel said skeptically. "Impossible. Not for a hunting party," Kraz countered. "A small vessel could slip through using the Vexatar stealth technology." Miko felt adrenaline flooding her system, that ancient response to danger and opportunity intertwined. "I volunteer." "Absolutely not," Counselor Venplex protested. "You're a diplomat, not a soldier." "With respect, Counselor," Miko replied. "I'm exactly what's needed for this mission. The Vrang are using human hunting strategies. I can anticipate their movements, and I have something no one else here has." "And what is that?" the counselor demanded. Miko smiled grimly. "A predator's understanding of prey." 42 minutes later, Miko found herself aboard the Night Shadow, a Vexatar scout vessel so sleek and deadly looking that it seemed more like a weapon than a ship. Huntmaster Kraz had assembled a hunting party of 6 elite warriors, each specialized in different aspects of the hunt. "This is Venk." Kraz introduced a Vexatar with unusually dark scales. "Our Shadow Walker." And Trez, he indicated another, whose scales rippled with computational patterns. "Our Tech Hunter." The others, Draz Lorx and Kem, were introduced as specialists in close combat, long-range elimination, and battlefield medicine respectively. Miko tried not to dwell on how frequently they might need the latter. "The human will be our mind hunter," Kraz explained to his team. "She understands how our prey thinks." The Vexatar warriors studied her with those unnerving predator eyes. Miko forced herself to meet each gaze steadily, drawing on that ancient recognition between hunters. "Our mission is simple," Kraz continued. Locate the Vrang command vessel, infiltrate and sever the hive mind's connection to its forces. And if severing the connection fails, asked Venk, the Shadow Walker. Kraz's mouth opened in that not-quite smile. Then we ensure the hive mind ceases to function permanently. As the night shadow detached from the station and accelerated toward the nearby jump point, Miko strapped herself into a seat designed for a body structure entirely unlike her own. Tell me, human, Trez asked as the stars stretched around them, does your species have a ritual before the hunt begins? Miko thought about it for a moment. We used to paint our faces, sing songs to focus our minds, invoke spirits to guide our spears. She paused. Now we mostly just say hold my beer, and do something incredibly stupid. The translator struggled with the concept of beer, but Kraz seemed to grasp the essence. A challenge to prove one's courage. Yes, this we understand. The jump point loomed ahead. A controlled spatial distortion that would propel them across vast distances in moments. So, Miko said, gripping her restraints tightly, hold my metaphorical beer, I guess. The night shadow plunged into the swirling vortex, carrying its hunting party of 7. 6 evolved from the cosmos's most efficient killers, and 1 from a species that had decided being an apex predator wasn't just about having the sharpest claws, but about outsmarting everything else in the food chain. As the ship hurtled through subspace, Miko reflected that humanity's long climb from prey to predator had prepared her for this moment, in ways no diplomatic training ever could. They were headed into the darkness between stars to hunt an enemy that consumed evolutionary advantages. They would soon discover what happened when that enemy encountered humanity's particular evolutionary path. A species that had turned predation into an art form, transforming from prey to planet-dominating apex, through sheer stubborn ingenuity. The Vrang thought they were the hunters. They were about to learn they were wrong. The night shadow emerged from the jump point into a scene of cosmic devastation. The outer colony of Proxus Thrid was already under attack, its orbital defenses failing against the Vrang swarm ships. The planet's azure atmosphere was scarred with entry burns where Vrang landing craft had descended. Stealth systems at maximum, Trez reported, his scales rippling with data patterns, were registering as background radiation. Kraz stood at the command interface, his predator's eyes scanning tactical overlays. The command vessel will be behind their main forces, coordinating. Trez, analyze their formation patterns. I think I can help with that, Miko said, studying the movement of the Vrang ships. In human military history, we've developed specific formations for different tactical goals. The Vrang are using something similar to a Napoleonic corps system, semi-independent groups that can function on their own, but follow central coordination. She pointed to the display. See how these groups move in sequence rather than simultaneously. That's to maintain continuous pressure, while allowing for rest cycles. Which means, the command vessel must maintain equidistant positioning to optimize communication efficiency. Trez finished, clearly impressed. Exactly, Miko nodded. And given their current formation and attack vectors, that places their command vessel, she traced a path through the tactical display. Here, in the shadow of Proxus Thrid's larger moon, Venk, the Shadow Walker, made a sound of approval. A hunter's instinct, using natural cover. Set course, ordered Kraz. Maintain stealth approach. Prepare for boarding operations. As the night shadow glided silently through the chaos of battle, Miko suited up alongside the Vexithar warriors. The combat suit they'd provided had been hastily modified for human physiology, and fit about as comfortably as a wetsuit made of sandpaper. The Vrang command vessel's outer hull will be composed of living tissue, Kraz explained as they gathered in the ship's deployment bay. We will enter through an excretion port. I'm sorry, Miko interrupted. A what? What your species might call a waste disposal outlet. Lorx, the long-range specialist, clarified. Oh great, Miko muttered. We're going in through the space monster's toilet. It is the least defended entry point, Kraz stated matter-of-factly. Of course it is. The plan was straightforward. Infiltrate the command vessel, locate the central neural cluster that served as the hive mind's primary node, and deploy a specialized disruptor that would sever its connection to the rest of the Vrang forces. If that failed, they would destroy the node entirely. Simple in theory, considerably less simple when it involved navigating the digestive system of a living spaceship, filled with creatures that wanted to consume your genetic material. We are approaching the target, Trez announced. Excretion port opening detected on the ventral surface. That's our cue, Kraz said, activating his helmet. The semi-transparent material flowed over his head like liquid glass before solidifying. Remember, once inside we move as a pack. The Vrang will sense our presence quickly. Miko checked her equipment one last time. Disruptor charges, emergency breather, and the Vexithar energy blade Kraz had insisted she keep after their first encounter. Just to be clear, she said, our plan is to sneak into a living spaceship through its poop chute, fight our way to its brain, and give it the equivalent of a psychic lobotomy. Precisely, Kraz confirmed, missing or ignoring her sarcasm. Just making sure we're all on the same page. The airlock cycled open, and the hunting party launched themselves into the void. Their suits' propulsion systems carried them silently toward the massive Vrang vessel, a nightmarish combination of organic and technological components that pulsed with unnatural life. The excretion port was exactly as disgusting as Miko had feared, a sphincter-like opening in the ship's hull that dilated as they approached. Inside was a tunnel of undulating tissue bathed in bioluminescent fluid that Miko determinedly didn't think too hard about. Once inside, the hunting party moved with practiced precision. Venk took point, his dark scales blending with the shadows. Lorx and Draz flanked the group, weapons ready, while Kem and Triz monitored their surroundings for threats. Kraz and Miko stayed at the center, following the path that would lead them to the neural cluster. The vessel is aware of us, Triz warned as they navigated the twisting corridors of living tissue. I'm detecting increased neural activity throughout the structure. As if in response, the walls around them began to constrict, pulsing with angry red light. From side passages emerged Vrang drones, vaguely humanoid creatures with too many limbs and not enough face. Contact, Draz called out, his energy blades slicing through the first wave of drones. The battle was chaotic and claustrophobic. The Vexthahar moved with lethal efficiency, each warrior a perfect killing machine. Miko found herself fighting alongside them, her human reflexes surprisingly effective in the close quarters. The energy blade hummed in her hand as she fended off the relentless Vrang. We need to keep moving, Kraz urged as they dispatched the last of the immediate threats. The neural cluster is 3 levels above us. They pushed forward, fighting through increasingly desperate resistance. The Vrang were learning, adapting their tactics with each encounter. By the time they reached the central chamber, the hunting party was battered and bloodied. Kem had been badly wounded, one arm nearly severed by a Vrang blade. Venk's stealth capabilities had been compromised by some kind of parasitic attachment. Even Kraz showed signs of fatigue, his scales dulled from their usual vibrant colors. But they had made it. Before them pulsed the neural cluster, a massive brain-like structure suspended in a transparent nutrient bath. Tendrils extended from it in all directions, carrying its commands throughout the vessel and to the Vrang fleet beyond. Triz, deploy the disruptor, Kraz ordered. The tech hunter moved forward, the specialized device ready in his grasp. But before he could reach the cluster, the chamber shuddered violently. The nutrient bath bubbled and churned as the neural cluster began to change shape, forming something that looked disturbingly like a face. Interesting, boomed a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once, the sound painfully reverberating through their skulls. New genetic material, valuable, it's trying to communicate, Miko realized. Or stall, Kraz countered, motioning for Triz to continue his approach. The human is correct, the voice continued. We communicate, we offer exchange, genetic sharing. Hard pass on the genetic sharing, Miko replied. We're here to stop you from consuming any more colonies. The face in the neural cluster twisted into something that might have been a smile. Consumption is evolution. We evolve. You evolve. Together. It's attempting psychological manipulation, Kraz warned. A hunter's tactic. Suddenly Miko understood. It's using what it learned from those research outposts. Human negotiation tactics combined with Vexthahar hunting psychology. Correct. Human. We learn, we adapt, we become better predators. You're not predators, Miko said, stepping forward. Predators maintain balance. They cull the weak to strengthen the herd. They're part of an ecosystem. She gestured around them. You're parasites. You don't create, you only steal. The face contorted with rage. We take what we deserve. We become perfect. Perfect. Miko laughed, a sound that seemed to confuse the neural cluster. That's where you're wrong. Perfect is the enemy of adaptation. And adaptation is what makes a true apex predator. While she kept the neural cluster distracted, Kraz signaled the rest of the hunting party. They had positioned themselves strategically around the chamber, ready for the final phase of their plan. Humans understand this better than anyone, Miko continued. We've never been perfect. We've always been just good enough to survive, to adapt, to overcome. That's why every apex predator recognizes something in our eyes. The understanding that survival isn't about being the strongest, but about being able to change. Relevant, the neural cluster boomed. We will consume your knowledge too. I didn't come here to give you a philosophy lesson, Miko replied, a grim smile spreading across her face. I came to teach you something about human hunting tactics. And what is that? Distraction, she said simply. In that moment, Triz activated the disruptor, sending a pulse of energy through the chamber that caused the neural cluster to writhe in agony. Simultaneously, Lorx fired precision shots at key connection points around the cluster, while Venk and Draz severed the main neural tendrils. The Vrang command vessel shuddered violently as its central consciousness was disrupted. The face in the neural cluster dissolved into formless tissue as the hive mind's connection to its forces was severed. It's working, Triz confirmed, monitoring the effect through his suit's sensors. The Vrang fleet is losing coordination, but the neural cluster wasn't finished. Even as its connections were being severed, it launched a final desperate attack. The chamber filled with a psychic scream that dropped everyone to their knees. The walls began to secrete a caustic fluid that ate through their protective gear. It's trying to consume us directly, Kraz shouted over the cacophony. We need to destroy it completely. Miko looked at the disruptor charges still strapped to her belt, then at the wounded hunting party around her. They had come too far to fail now. Get everyone back to the ship, she told Kraz, unclipping the charges. I'll finish this, that's a suicide mission, the hunt master growled. The charges must be placed directly within the neural tissue, then it's a good thing humans are stupidly self-sacrificing, Miko replied with a grim smile. It's practically our defining characteristic. Before Kraz could protest further, Miko activated her suit's enhanced mobility function and launched herself toward the neural cluster. The caustic fluid burned through her gloves as she plunged her hands directly into the writhing mass of tissue, pushing the charges deep inside. The neural cluster screamed, not just in her mind now, but through her body as it tried to consume her genetic material, to understand what made humans such effective predators. In those final moments, connected directly to the hive mind, Miko showed it exactly what it wanted to know. She showed it humanity's long climb from prey to apex predator. She showed it persistence hunting under the African sun, the development of tools and language and cooperation. She showed it the darkness of human history, the wars and genocides and environmental destruction. But she also showed it human resilience, the capacity for change and growth and self-correction. Most importantly, she showed it what made humans the ultimate survivors, the ability to sacrifice individual survival for the group. You wanted to know what makes us apex, Miko whispered as she activated the charges. It's this. The last thing she saw before the explosion was Hunt Master Kraz's eyes meeting hers across the chamber, that ancient recognition passing between them one final time. Miko Jensen opened her eyes to a ceiling that was decidedly not the afterlife she'd expected. Unless the afterlife featured sterile white panels and the unmistakable smell of antiseptic. The hunt prey awakens came a familiar gravelly voice. Miko turned her head, a movement that sent shockwaves of pain throughout her body, to see Hunt Master Kraz seated beside her medical bed. His scales were a calm blue-green, which she'd come to recognize as his version of relief. Hunt prey, she managed to croak through a throat that felt like it had been scoured with sandpaper. Is that a promotion or demotion from small soft one? It is what we call those who are both hunter and hunted, Kraz replied. Those who understand both sides of the chase. Miko tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. How am I not dead? The last thing I remember was detonating charges inside a giant space brain. Vank pulled you out, Kraz explained. Shadow walkers have certain abilities regarding the space between life and death. It was not a guarantee. Translation, she'd been clinically dead, and the Vextahar equivalent of a necromancer had yanked her back. Great. One more existential crisis to add to her growing collection.
The Vrang? She asked, prioritizing the fate of the galaxy over her own metaphysical concerns. Scattered, without their command structure they reverted to base survival instincts. The Confederation fleet eliminated most of the stragglers. Kraz's mouth opened in that not-quite smile. Your tactic was effective. Primitive, but effective. Thanks, I think. A medical technician, a Florian with leafy appendages, entered and checked Miko's vitals. Ambassador Jensen continues to recover remarkably quickly, they announced, leaves rustling with what might have been approval. The cellular regeneration therapy is exceeding expected parameters. After the technician left, Miko raised an eyebrow at Kraz. Cellular regeneration therapy. A Vextahar hunting technique, he explained. When our warriors are gravely wounded, we accelerate their natural healing processes. So you used predator medicine on me, is that safe for humans? Kraz's scales rippled with amusement. We had to make certain adjustments, but your species proved adaptable as always. Before Miko could inquire further about exactly what adjustments had been necessary, the door slid open to admit Counselor Vemplex and Dr. Pelzix. Both looked somehow simultaneously relieved and uncomfortable. Ambassador Jensen, the counselor began formally. The Confederation extends its deepest gratitude for your actions. The Council has voted unanimously to award you our highest honor, the Star of Preservation. Thanks, Miko said, suddenly exhausted. But I wasn't alone. The entire hunting party deserves recognition. The Vextahar do not hunt for rewards, Kraz stated simply. Dr. Pelzix stepped forward, mandibles twitching with barely contained excitement. Ambassador, the data we collected from your encounter with the Vrang neural cluster is extraordinary. The psychic imprint of your interaction contained a complete evolutionary history of human predatory development. You mean when it was trying to eat my brain, it downloaded my ancestral memory or something? Essentially, yes, the scientist confirmed. And in doing so, it provided us with unprecedented insights into human evolutionary psychology. Your species' transition from prey to apex predator is unique in our records. Miko sighed. So now the entire Confederation knows we're secretly bloodthirsty monkey descendants with delusions of grandeur. Great first impression. On the contrary, Counselor Vemplex interjected. The Council now better understands humanity's position in the galactic ecosystem. We had been treating your species as herbivorous social gatherers based on your current physiological traits. A significant miscalculation. The data suggests, Dr. Pelzix continued enthusiastically, that humans retain predatory instincts tempered by social cooperation on a scale not seen in other apex species. You're essentially pack hunters that expanded the definition of packs to include your entire species. And sometimes beyond it, Miko added, thinking of humanity's relationship with dogs, cats, and other Earth species that had joined their extended pack. Kraz had been silent during this exchange, but now he spoke. The Council wishes to offer humans a new position within the Confederation. Let me guess, Miko said dryly, we get to be the official diplomats to all the scary predator species now. Not exactly, Counselor Vemplex replied. We wish to create a new division within the Confederation Defense Force, a specialized unit for threat assessment and response. A hunting party, if you will, comprised of representatives from Earth and predatory species across the galaxy. Miko blinked in surprise. You want us to be the Confederation's apex predators? In a manner of speaking, the counselor confirmed. Many threats in our galaxy cannot be addressed through conventional military response. The Vrang incursion demonstrated the effectiveness of a small specialized team with unique evolutionary perspectives. And naturally, Dr. Pelzix added, we would like you to lead this initiative, Ambassador Jensen. Me? I'm a diplomat with exactly one successful mission that by all rights should have killed me. You are a predator who understands prey, Kraz stated. A hunter who knows when to stalk and when to charge. This is rare wisdom. Miko looked around at the three alien faces watching her expectantly, the crystalline bureaucrat, the insectoid scientist, and the reptilian hunter. Three species that couldn't be more different, united in the belief that humans had something unique to offer. I'm going to need time to think about it, she said finally. And probably several stiff drinks. Of course, Counselor Vemplex nodded. The offer remains open. For now, focus on your recovery. After they left, only Kraz remained. He stood by the window looking out at the stars. The Vextahar have a saying, he said without turning. The eyes of the hunter reflect the soul of the prey. It means that to truly understand hunting, one must know what it is to be hunted. Earth has a similar concept, Miko replied. Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. Your species remembers being prey, Kraz continued. It shapes how you hunt, how you think. You do not take life casually because you know its value. That's a pretty generous interpretation of human history. Kraz turned to face her, those predator eyes meeting hers with that now familiar recognition. Not all hunts are perfect, but the intent behind them matters. As Miko recovered over the following weeks, she found herself increasingly intrigued by the Council's offer. The proposed hunting party would operate outside standard protocols, addressing threats that conventional forces couldn't handle. It was diplomatic work of a sort, just with more teeth. When she finally accepted the position, the ceremony was attended by representatives from every predatory species in the Confederation. Each approached her in turn, meeting her eyes with that same primal recognition, apex to apex, hunter to hunter. Hunt Master Kraz, now her official liaison to the Vexthahar, presented her with a ceremonial blade. "May your hunts be worthy," he said, the traditional blessing of his people. "May my prey be swift," she replied, having learned the proper response. Later at the reception, Glix approached her nervously, eye stalks twitching. "Ambassador Jensen, or should I say Commander Jensen now?" "Just Miko is fine, Glix. I've been reassigned as your diplomatic attaché for the new division," he said, somehow managing to look both terrified and proud. "Though I must confess, I'm not entirely certain what my role will be in a hunting party." Miko smiled. "Every good hunter needs someone to remind them of the rules occasionally, and I have a feeling we're going to be breaking quite a few of them." As the celebration continued around them, Miko found herself at a viewport, looking out at the vast expanse of stars. Somewhere out there, new threats were evolving, new challenges emerging, and somehow against all odds, humanity had found its niche in the cosmic ecosystem, not as conquerors or subjects, but as protectors. Every apex predator in the galaxy now recognized something kindred in human eyes, not just the capacity for violence that all predators share, but something uniquely human, the memory of vulnerability transformed into strength, the understanding that true power comes not from domination but from protection. Humans hadn't evolved to be the strongest or the fastest, they'd evolved to be the most adaptable, the most tenacious, the most willing to change, and in a galaxy full of specialized predators, that made humanity the most dangerous species of all. Kraz joined her at the viewport, his scales shifting through colors she'd learned to recognize as contemplative. "What are you thinking, Hunt Prey?" Miko smiled at the title she'd once found strange, but now wore as a badge of honor. "I'm thinking about eyes," she said, "and what we see in each other's." "And what do you see in mine?" the Hunt Master asked. "A future," she replied simply. "One where being an apex predator means taking responsibility for the whole ecosystem, not just your place in it." Kraz made that rumbling sound she now recognized as laughter. "Humans, always turning simple hunting into philosophical quandaries. It's our specialty," Miko agreed. "That, and surviving things we really shouldn't." Together, predator and hunt prey, they watched the stars, each seeing something slightly different, yet recognizing in the other's gaze a shared understanding of what it meant to be apex in a dangerous universe. Some hunts were just beginning,